Jump into our first topic of the show, guys. Talking a lot of Cavs, some Browns, and some Guardians. But we start with the Browns after a quick word from FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to make a bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for bigger payouts, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. That is FanDuel.com/UCSS for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, guys, yesterday, the Haslam Sports Group unveiled its financial plan for the proposed $2.4 billion Brook Park Dome, and I broke down some of the numbers to make it as easily digestible as humanly possible. So, Ant, let's take this first graphic here. In the financial proposal, the stadium would be set to open for the 2029 season. The $2.4 billion, it would be split up into three categories: $600 million from the state, $600 million from local governments, and $1.2 billion from the Haslam/private funding, and how that affects locals and their impact here in the Cuyahoga County, Northeast Ohio area. The bed tax would be increased from 6.5% to 7.5%. There would be a $6 fee on any rental cars. Basically, they said, we want to charge people who don't live here, who are just coming to visit, to help fund this, so that $6 fee would be on all rental cars. The biggest proponent would be the 3% increase in admission tax from 3.5% to 6.5%. They would also take some of the Brook Park parking taxes, and then a diverted income tax would be the last stream that helps make up that $600 million from the local side. Jason, you are much better on the financial information, numbers, etc. than I am, so what was your initial thoughts on this proposal to fund the $2.4 billion Brook Park Dome?
Well, I was glad they finally rolled something out, because they keep talking about they're going to pay for half of it, and we never really saw a plan on the other half. I don't love some of those projections and totals. First of all, nobody rents cars anymore.
Thanks.
So why are we doing $6 increase on rental cars when Uber and Lyft have taken over? I mean, people still rent cars, but go ask Hertz and Avis how many of their fleets they've sold off in recent years, because people just don't rent cars anymore. And you're dealing with a lot of projections there on hotel rooms, on the bed tax, on that sort of thing. The admission tax is fine. That goes to people that are using the facilities. I personally still am a proponent for DeWine's plan. I like what Mike DeWine rolled out, where it was taxing gambling money. I wrote about this 2 years ago. When gambling was first legalized in Ohio, the tax rate was 10%. And I said increase it to 13 or 15%, use that 3 to 5% to fund all of these facilities across the state. And DeWine went way further than that, which I love. And they've already, since I wrote that, initially they've increased it from 10 to 20. They've already doubled it. He wants to double it
50,
again,
right?
to 40. He wants
40.
to take it to 40, 20 to 40%.
And that's on the gambling companies, not the consumer, right?
That's on the gambling companies. Now, the
Yeah.
companies will probably find a way to pass it on to the bettors. But still, you're taxing the people that are actually using the facility. Ohioans spent over $8 billion in gambling last year. That was the handle in Ohio. In November alone, it was over $1 billion placed on sports bets in the state of Ohio. Ohio's like 5th in sports gambling.
We got degenerates, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, obviously, it's who you would think is at the top. It's Nevada, it's New York, it's New Jersey, Pennsylvania are all clearly ahead of Ohio, and then Michigan and Ohio are pretty close in the gambling. But this is where, to me, this is where it's at. And DeWine's already getting a lot of pushback on it from both legislatures, and the Haslams seemed to push it to the side yesterday. They want to see more information on it. I think it makes perfect sense. I think that's the route to go. I like that much more. And Mike's right. Mike DeWine told Cleveland.com that he wants to use real cash and not bonds to pay for it. And I think that's right, because if the bonds fall short, bonds you're talking about projections. Like, you're projecting this amount of money. Well, guess what happens when those projections fall short? It falls on the public. So the gambling, I saw some legislatures say they were concerned with increasing the gambling tax because they're afraid that it will then suppress gamblers.
No.
Dustin, is gambling going to be suppressed? No, not at all.
And you're right. They could definitely hit you on the back end with it. You could just go from -110 to -120 on the juice that they get. So they'll get it back. I don't think it's an issue. I mean, the gambling is going to be there. People are addicted, and people like to gamble in sports. It's Ohio, and there's not a lot of sunny days. So this is going to be one of the states that's going to continue to lead the way for the sports gambling. And,
got to.
Yeah.
Again, in November, just this past November, I just looked this up this morning. So what, 3-4 months ago, Ohio surpassed $1 billion in bets on the handle for the month of November. It was the first time Ohio surpassed $1 billion since way back in, I think it was February. When gambling was first legal, when it first became
years
legal.
ago, right? A couple years ago.
But it was over $8 billion again this year in gambling. Like that is, I won't say it's free money, but I joked with you guys in the text thread yesterday. Gambling is the money tree that will.
Listen, if we're gonna put our money into it, win or lose, at least the people that are taking our money, at least the bookies are paying up.
They got Jason said it. Y'all got y'all's money. Like when it came through and the tax was 10%, right? You got all these billions of dollars. You should have already accounted for it. At some point in time, these politicians are going to come in and get their cut. So if you made $8 billion, you take a look at that. That pays for that stadium, the Cincinnati Reds or the Bengals, whoever want a different new stadium. So, I agree with Jason. First and foremost, I'm not trying to deal with no bonds. If you could buy something in cash and get it done with, fine, we'll take that. And then after that point in time, you could worry about how you're going to put different other things around them. I looked at that tax, and that plan that they put out, it looks like something from Gateway. It looks like they got 17 different other, we're going to get it from the hotels, we're going to try to get something for these car companies, we're going to try to get it a little bit here and a little bit. No, I'd rather get it done from one source. And if you could get 40% and you're going to tax it, trust me, they're going to raise the tax anyway if the stadium was not there. They were going to get their money regardless. So for me, I just think this is a longer process. To me, all it says was, hey, we're going to get our stadium. We just don't know exactly what we're going to settle on the financials, but it's going to happen.
Let me ask you guys a question. Is that $1.2 billion or the 50% that they're paying the Haslams, is that higher than you thought that they would pay? Is that enough to make people here in the community satisfied that they're actually ponying up, or is it not enough?
That's the minimum. Okay. I think that's the minimum. I think you're going to have to go higher than that. And I believe, I'm not positive on this, I believe and it's a budget proposal from DeWine. None of this has been passed yet. I don't even know if it's going to get passed. I think it's a great idea. I wish it would pass, but I already saw Democrats, Republicans are already pushing back on DeWine's proposal. But I believe as part of DeWine's proposal, 60% of it has to be privately funded. So he would have to kick in another 10%, which he's got the money.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Adam and I have both said I'm in favor of him paying for the whole thing. And what's important to understand, and they know this, public trust of the Haslams is at an all-time low. From the scandal with Pilot, which he has always
from day one
denied any sort of culpability with. He didn't know anything about it. Whatever. It's still his company. People went to prison over that. 17 people were convicted over that, and that was his company. From the way that the Browns have been managed since he took over, there is zero trust. And that's why they haven't put anything on the ballot, because they know it's not going to pass.
Right.
So they're trying to do this without taking it before voters, because voters aren't going to give them $1. So at minimum, they have to put in 50%. I believe it should be higher. I think, and again, this is all a negotiation. DeWine's proposal will be negotiated. It's never going to be exactly, even if it passes, it probably won't be exactly what it looks like now. You always start high and then work toward the middle. But that, to me, makes a whole lot more sense using gambling funds than it is to try and go to the county and the city, because, again, those are all based on projections. And if you're off on your projections, if they fall short, now it falls on the taxpayers, and I don't like that.
You've talked about it a while, Jason, that, what the Browns are doing is more projected towards opening and getting a dome. Everything they're doing now is trying to facilitate that. Does this kind of put more pressure on them to, at least have a playable product in order to get public sentiment to a place where it lowers the amount of money they'd have to come out of pocket.
I mean, if you're trying to sell PSAs, you better have something worth PSAing. And right now, that's not a product worth. It's just not worth it. Who's gonna? And I would love a dome. I think I am ultimately pro dome. I think they should move off the lakefront. I hate that location. I hate that stadium. I think they should move to a dome. But the sticker shock for people in this region, for season ticket holders, is going to be astronomical.
Right.
In terms of we're going back to the PSA route that there was in '99 when they built it. We're doing that all over again, where you have to pay a fee just in order to be able to buy a seat, and the prices on this are going to be exorbitant. I don't have it in front of me. Go look at Buffalo. Go look at what Buffalo's doing.
I thought we did a show where we had a graphic with, how much tickets are going to cost based on what the new stadium is going to look like.
Those were proposals. I can find that again. That was not an official number by any means, but I remember when we saw those numbers on the show I was hosting that day. They're absurd, so I'll get those up in a sec.
Yeah,
but
crazy.
In terms of so go forward real quick. We're all in agreement that the gambling tax, if given the option, makes more sense.
And I would go back to weed too. I wrote about that too.
Yeah, why is that not on the list?
They're proposing for the marijuana tax. I think they're trying to increase it, and they're going to put it towards police training, jails, and that sort of thing. I know the Browns at one time were exploring marijuana as one revenue source, and these are all new revenue streams that didn't exist 5 years ago. So take advantage of them. But gambling, for sure, I think this is a huge missed opportunity. And it's not just the Browns. Like, the Bengals are trying to renovate Paycor. Now, the Bengals, I think, are looking for more public money. Like, the Haslams obviously have more money than the Brown family, and the Haslams are willing to put up a higher stake than the Brown family in Cincinnati is. But we're talking about, this isn't just Cleveland. This is Columbus. This is Cincinnati. There's a lot of facilities. There's Nationwide, or whatever they call it now, in Columbus. Is it still Nationwide? I don't Ohio Stadium would fall under this as well. All the facilities in Cincinnati. The thing, if I'm the Guardians right now, I'm pissed because they just had to, from what we saw, from what they showed me in Zach Meisel of this is the renderings of what we want to do to Progressive Field, and what the way that it turned out are night and day. They had to cut out so much of the initial renovations that they showed us because of construction costs, interest rates, all that stuff. So this is I'm not going to say it's minor because it's obviously a major undertaking what they're doing to Progressive Field, but it's not what they wanted.
Can we ask this question? Given now with the work shortage in construction, let's be honest, a lot of, there's an immigration issue where lots of construction workers were doing some of this work. There's a shortage with that. And with inflation and cost of regular issues like lumber and different things, do you think this thing is going to start on time and finish on time, given some of the requirements and some of the shortfalls that you have in labor costs, as well as some of the raw materials?
Well, DeWine's budget proposal won't pass until I think June. So, yeah, I mean, they
would break ground this summer.
It depends on.
The proposal said within a year was break ground time.
Yeah.
That's what they put out yesterday.
It depends on what they come up with, what they agree on, if it's the gambling route, if it's this bond route. I think you need shovels in the ground by the end of the year for sure, because what are we at now? 25, 26. I mean, you could probably stretch this to 26, but you're going to be up against it now. And I looked at this. I looked at the Minnesota Dome, how long it took them. But Minnesota had a ballot issue when they built that, so it was a little different. But I think it took them 3 years to build it. I think. So, I mean, obviously it will take a lot longer for the hotels and the restaurants and the development around that. But you got to have the dome ready to go at the start of 29. So I would think it would have to be shovels in the ground this year or early next at the very latest.
And so let me get this straight. So, because the logistics, now I don't know if you guys have heard this. Now they got the dome, right? They've already purchased the land. So you're telling me that when they put the restaurants, the shopping, whoever decides to come there, the transfer, all that good stuff, the Haslams are 100% stake owners in the surrounding land.
They will have all of it. They will be printing money. And you know what? I've said 100 times, I'm all for capitalism. Make as much as you can.
But You got to put that money up though.
Right, and that's why minimum 50% on the dome. Minimum, I think it should be higher, but at absolute minimum. And he needs to be responsible for any overruns because you said it earlier with construction situations the way it is today. There are always overruns.
Yeah,
I just built a house. Trust me, I know all about overruns.
They come back to you.
And he needs to be responsible for the overruns.
He did say they would pay from the Haslam or the private funding for any overruns.
Yeah.
I got those alleged ticket prices from the season ticket survey they had sent out a while ago. I'll just read them to you because I don't have the graphic. I just have a picture of it. But for a lower dog pound seat for the entire season, it was $1,845, which breaks down to about $230 a game.
Mm-hmm.
For the upper dog pound, it was $2,615. If you assume it's a 9-game season, it's $290 a ticket. If it's an 8-game home season, but I know there's preseason games involved too, but you get what I'm saying. Over $300 a ticket. It's going to be exorbitant, however you want to slice and dice it. But I want to ask you guys this real quick. On the proposal that the Browns put out yesterday, so take out marijuana, take out gambling, at least on what they proposed yesterday. Jason, Dustin, G, an increase in the bed tax, a fee on rental cars, the admission tax to Brook Park jumping up by 3%, which, as the Browns point out, would be a user tax, the parking tax in Brook Park, and then the version of the Project City income taxes generated from players, staff, and other workers on site. If this is the route that the Browns do go, and I'm just basing that off a proposal, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but off their proposal, how much does that impact, affect, hurt, help people locally in Northeast Ohio?
I mean, the way they're trying to do this is that there is no impact.
Right.
But again, like these are all based on projections, and if the projections fall short, then there will be an impact. And that's the only reason I don't love it is it's really hard to see that.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah.
There you go.
That's just a breakdown of the state, county, Brook Park.
So they put up half, and then the state puts in $600 million, and then the county and city are the other $600 million.
Correct.
So, I think there's risk in that. I think there's more risk in that than there is in the gambling. That's, I guess, the best way for me to say it. I'm not totally opposed to that, I guess, but I do think that the Haslams should put up more. And
I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's a case everybody can make, that they should, especially if they're going to get the revenue from every single. They own the property, right? They're getting it, so they're getting hooked up by the public. I mean, I'd prefer to see it all of them, obviously.
And I think it should.
I mean, I think $1.2 billion is a lot
of
money, of course, but in the end, dude, they're going to make that money back like tenfold.
Yeah, I just don't quite understand. Like, I know somebody. If I'm in the city, I'm like, look, man, you knew you wanted this stadium for how long? You just bought another team. You just literally bought another NBA franchise and was like, yeah, you just shelled out that bread like it wasn't nothing. Mm-hmm. You own a soccer team. You own a bunch of different stuff. Like, yeah, we get the fact that, and I heard them say this kind of a little bit as well. Like, I think in one of their statements, they talked about, given the fact that the NFL, this is just per whatever, everyone does it. Like, they're not, this is just normal business. Like, usually NFL teams and NFL cities put up some money for the owner if they want a new field, a new stadium, new dome, whatever the case may be. But that's kind of hard to swallow. When we don't know the actual number, because we talked about this before, Jason. We don't know the actual number that they paid for the Milwaukee Bucks, but it had to be in hundreds of millions. It couldn't have been nothing light.
No, I forget what Mike, can you look it up? I think it was like $350 million, which seemed low.
For what?
For the Bucks, what the Haslams reportedly paid for the Bucks. Shams had it. I know Shams had it. And then I was told that number was inaccurate, but I never saw what was then believed to be an accurate number. But it is at least a projection to go off. But, gee, this is what...
The projection was $700 million.
700 that they paid?
Yeah, I don't know if that's correct or not, but that was
that they paid? I thought they paid half that. I thought the valuation was 7 and they paid 350. But I could be wrong.
I'm seeing they bought 25% with a $3.2 billion valuation.
All right. So okay.
Once again, that is just simply.
Was that from Shams?
I'm reading the Forbes website.
That's good
right
enough.
now.
That's good enough. All right, so I was off on the numbers. So yeah, $700 million.
So if they're already putting up half, which is 1.2, right?
Yeah.
That 700 that they spent on the Bucks gets you almost to $2 billion.
Yeah.
You all the way home at that point.
And this is what, like we invest in real estate, right? That's what the common man does. They buy teams.
Right.
That's their version of buying homes and investing in real estate. But like their investment vehicles that just grow over time. And I'm just, I don't want to sidetrack. There's got to be a point where this bubble bursts. And I'm wondering, we were talking about this the other night, I'm wondering if that's why some of these NBA owners are jumping ship. Because guys are getting out, and I'm curious. I haven't put all the pieces together.
Yeah, we're going to figure, because when I found out and it just hit me, I said, hold on, Mark Cuban ain't.
Yep.
I don't know how that happened. I was just like, what do you mean Mark
That
Cuban?
was the one
Have you
that
seen these
was,
contracts lately? I mean, at some point, dude, these guys are making too much money than they're going to bring in.
Yeah. So and I don't want to sidetrack the whole thing.
I think you're on something there.
But it's something weird is going on with these valuations. But I mean, that's what they do. The wealthy people, like the 1%, buy sports teams as investment vehicles.
And by the way, we're gonna come up, we're gonna support it. You know what it is. Like, I don't even know why we even do all the shucking and jiving talk about, we won't show up. No, football is almost a religion at this point. Like, you support your team, you go to church, you go to mass, you go to the mosque, you go to wherever you go. You're gonna go to that stadium because it's your team and it's part of your identity. So it sucks a little bit that, hey, but at least if the gamblers are gonna keep gambling, and they already got their money, so I would rather do it that route.
This is all a negotiation. The whole thing is just it's a negotiation between the city of Cleveland and the Browns over this Modell law thing. There's a negotiation for how to pay for it. It's all connected. It's all tied together. And if the Haslams want to build goodwill, because again, their trust factor is in the negative right now, they come out and say 70%, 75%, whatever it is, I think they would go a long way toward helping to rebuild credibility and trust.
Two things, then we'll move on. But we got a tweet from someone from Aaron Lee who just says Buffalo's doing the PSL route and Bills fans are not happy about it. So he just.
But they're buying them.
Just to mention that. And secondly, to your point, Jason, it's all a negotiation. How much of a factor do you think the Haslams, the city? Let me ask it a different way. How much is the public being used as pawns in this negotiation process?
How much is explain? I'm not.
Like, public pressure is going to end up being part of whatever the finality is, whether the Haslams pay for half, more, et cetera, et cetera. How much of all the plans that are being, not leaked because they put this out yesterday, but we saw the Dome proposal come out, and then way longer we saw, if they renovated the Dome, this could come out. Like, it seemed like there's some pretty strategic timing on some of this stuff. Not all of it, but on some of this. How much do you think the public is being used as a gauge of interest, or hey, they might go for this, they might not? Like how much are we being involuntarily used as part of this negotiation?
Part of it's a weather vane, or like you see which way the wind's blowing and see what the reaction is to some of this stuff. But ultimately, it's going to come down to negotiations between the Haslams, city and county leaders,
and the politicians.
In Cuyahoga County. Yeah, and I said it before. Like, at some point, I believe the city of Cleveland has to give the Browns a number and say, let's make this go away. Like,
I was just going to ask that question. If they say, listen, hey, give us $100 million, you're on your way. We just need that. We need a going away present.
And I think the Browns would write that check, but the city has to come up with something, because I do think ultimately it's best for them to be in a dome in Brook Park.
I agree.
And you could do so much more with the lakefront than put a stupid stadium there that you use 10 times a year. Like, what a waste of space. And I've talked to people who have built these things before. Like, when I was first starting to dig in on this stuff, I talked to people who were part of the gateway negotiations way back in the day. And one thing, it was like, we have this beautiful lakefront. We have these beautiful architectural designs think about the Rock Hall and the Science Center, and they look like Tinker Toys because you've got this monstrosity that sits vacant all the time that is not, it's just there. There's nothing around it in terms of football, and it's just wasting space on the lakefront. So if the Haslams would be, and they are, like, I think that they are willing to be part of the redevelopment of the lakefront still, even if they pull out. They can't just pull out and abandon Cleveland. I don't think they will. I think that they've told the city, like, just give us a number. What's it going to take? And the city has to realize this is what's best for the region, come up with that number. That Jimmy writes the check and is part of the renovation process of the lakefront. Everybody can win on this thing. I still believe that.
You know what the problem is, Jason? Problem is then the city would actually have to do something. Like the city, like I think sometimes we don't get it. The city is not like, they're not innocent in it. The city could have initiated a lot of different things. The city could have initiated growth and development while the Browns were there.
Yeah.
They could have done something on their own initiative. And if the Browns give them a bag of money and say, hey, look, this is our, we're going to still commit to doing something down on that lakefront, then the city would actually have to follow through.
Yeah.
They would have to actually build something.
Right.
They would actually, because from what I know, I'm from Canton. I've been here. But look, Canton, they've revitalized the Hall of Fame, right? They got behind it and they said, look, we got to do something. We got the Hall of Fame. We got all these people coming in here, and they come downtown. There ain't nothing. They come around the facility.
Yep.
So they said, let's build some infrastructure so people can come here year round.
Yeah.
So here in Cleveland, hey, you got the Browns, you got the Cavs, you got the Guardians. When are you going to start being, have an initiative to go do something instead of talking about it?
Yeah.
And so. Hopefully, if they do give them that check, maybe that gives them some giddy up to actually do something.
Well, Cleveland, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but Cleveland has suffered from brain drain for generations. People grow up here and then leave. Yeah. And that's why you have Browns backers clubs all over the country, because people grow up here, they're passionate about their team, and then they leave because there's no opportunities for them here. They need more. I mean, Sherwin-Williams bringing their headquarters to Cleveland, I've talked about 100 times, was huge for the city. That was huge. Dan has brought some Quicken stuff to Cleveland. I asked the Haslams when they were still part of Pilot, bring it here. Why don't you bring it here?
Right.
And they said they were happy in Nashville, and now obviously they're out of that entirely. They liquidated, they sold off everything that they owned from there. But we need more business to come here. More business coming here will bring more people coming here, staying here, living downtown. I mean, go out after a Cavs game, it's a ghost town.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's just so strange to me. I covered the NBA for 10 years, and even in cold climates, you go out. Milwaukee was very similar. After a game, it's sort of dead there. But, you go out, and there's still people out and spending money and in bars and restaurants, whatever else. And here, people just get in their car and they drive home. That's why,
It was better before COVID. I think that hurt things downtown quite a bit. Like the fact that Winking Lizard can't be open, it's next to two arenas, two stadiums.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, it's a joke. But I don't know the finances of that. But I mean, the fact that that's an example of a bar restaurant that's around these places that just can't even afford to pay the rent and keep it open because people are staying and the bodies are going through the door. Like that's the issue. Yeah, I mean, it was hopping for a minute when the Cavs won in 2016.
Yeah,
downtown was popping.
It was jumping.
It was jumping. So I don't know if it'll ever get back. Excuse me, ever get back to that. But it was fun then.
Yeah.
But not so much anymore.